The Love Witch is a 2016 American horror tragedy film written, edited, and directed, and produced, and scored, and set designed by Anna Biller.
Well, what do men want?
Just a pretty woman to love and to take care of them.
Love me. Love me.
What I'm really interested in is love. You might say I'm addicted to love.
I would do anything for love.
Welcome back to the Cult of Films. I'm John, the host, and we are joined once again by Mr. Zack Taylor. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, what's up? Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I was gonna do a little witchy dance for you, but I didn't get the witch's bottle potion set. It wasn't potent enough, so I decided against that. So we're just gonna go off of my charms and my. But you could see that the Love Witch has a spell on my shirt because I am just like in and out of the plane of reality tonight.
Yeah, I thought about making one of these witches balls, and I was like, I don't know. Just like jam some pizza rolls in there for me.
That's the difference is, ours would just be considered just like trash,
Yeah, basically. Like, who take it into a shop? What the crap is this?
Yeah. So The Love Witch is a movie, came out in 2016, and it was on my radar, and it was one of those that people kept telling me to see it, and I was like, yeah, okay. And for the longest time, I'm just like, I really thought that this was a 1960s, 1970s film that just kind of flew under the radar. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll get to it. There's a lot of films to watch. And so I just kept putting it off and putting it off. But then I finally sat down and watched it. I will kind of divulge what I thought, but first I want to hear your thoughts, Zach. What did you think of The Love Witch?
I'm the love witch. I'm your ultimate fantasy.
I thought it was an interesting movie. Like, I really liked the aesthetic of like kind of the 60s in it. It was some of the stuff, like there's like these anachronisms where you're like not sure where it's set. Like it seems set in the 70s with like the shops and the way they the girl dresses, but then like the landlady like rolls up in like a BMW, like a normal BMW, and then like some of the stuff she does, I'm like, yeah, there's no way she's gonna get caught. Like DNA's not a thing in the 60s. And then he's like, we caught you by your DNA. And I was like, whoa, y'all can do DNA? I don't know, it's kind of weird, but like I love how it was set, and I love that, and you can tell it was shot on film and not digitally. And it's just like it's a gorgeous movie.
This is Technicolor. Like, this is not just, yes, it's shot on film, and it looks so grainy and just wonderful and just like chewy almost. But yeah, definitely looks like those 1960s Technicolor where the contrast is already like bleeding at the edges before you're even touching the remote control. It's so aesthetically pleasing, and that's the major thing is style wise, it lands it. You get a 10, you get the gold medal for style, but does it land the execution of the story and the plot? What did you think?
But I should have known. He's a Pisces.
Like this was kind of a more complex movie. I didn't find any flaw in any particular character or anything that was like, oh, this feels like it takes me out of the movie. And everything like felt like it was like in the 60s, like we said, and I think it was like I thought a lot of it was great.
I believe, I don't have the official numbers, but I think this was made for under $1 million.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel cheap at all. How it got its production value back was Anna Biller, who at this point she had made one film before this, a film called Viva, which was also an actual period piece where it wasn't just the aesthetics making it there wasn't just that like 60s filter on it but it was still like set in the present day. This was an actual period piece film, and if you go back and look at that film, you could definitely see this person has such an affection for 1960s, like exploitation films.
You're not only a whore, you're a filthy lesbian.
Viva. Experience the sexual revolution.
But using the female gaze. Her films are very explicit. Her films are, we get full frontal nudity.
Right.
Both male
Wasn't
and female.
expecting that.
Very shocking, right? Because it feels so like, I don't want to say cookie cutter at first, like you're like, wow, this looks really cool, but then it just feels like it's gonna be such like a PG thing, and then you get just a circle of penises.
Right. Yeah, when she was starting off, I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a campy, like just like love story or whatever, and she's gonna learn a lesson and all this, and it turned out not to be that kind of cookie cutter sort of situation like you mentioned.
Right. Yeah, and I love films where it's hard to peg down the genre because, it's a horror, it's a romance, it's a comedy. There is definitely some times where I was like laughing to tears. And it's not like you're laughing at the film because it's a bad film. Everything's intentional. Like, we just see something horrific, and then the two cops are talking. He's like, hey, turkey avocado on wheat. You want mayo or mustard?
Can you order me a turkey and avocado on whole wheat?
Mustard? Mayo?
Yeah, and coleslaw.
The line delivery is so spot on to these older films that it just makes you smirk and it makes you smile.
Yeah. I definitely love the Victorian tea room scenes.
Oh my
You're just like, it's just like, this like feels like it's pulled out of like another era. Like they were all wearing like pink, and she had the big hat on and all this, and
the harp player.
The harp player, and then like she's kind of like looking at the harp player, and the harp player's like looking back at her.
The fact that she took ownership of every little thing, and she even said, she's like, half of it was because she didn't have the money to do it, and the second half of is because she's such a perfectionist. She had this very specific vision in her head. At any point one of these things didn't have so much attention to detail, this movie is very easy to fall off the rails and just become like a farce, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Like this was more of like a love letter to those sort of movies as opposed to like just a gimmick or whatever. And you can tell that like a lot of care was put into the aesthetics of this movie. Like, attention to detail was definitely like paid.
I use the word tactile a lot, probably too much, but I don't think there has ever been a more tactile film than this. I mean, she hand-stitched every single piece of costumes. Every costume they wore.
Wow.
Like you said, in the tea room, those are intricate costumes. And so I guess for a couple of years, because the pre-production on this was years and years in the making, because Anna Biller was sick. I don't want to get too much into her personal things, but she was sick. So she's like, what else am I going to do? I want to make this movie. I'm just going to do these things. And it just goes to show, I'm not telling people to go, get sick so you could portray your vision cinematically, but
if you want to, it's an option. It's an option.
If you want to, here's proof. Proof is in the pudding, I guess, or in the witch's brew. What is The Love Witch about, Zach?
It's definitely about a woman who's trying to find a man. Personally, from how I see it, she was trying too hard. Like, I think she, got this idea of what like a perfect housewife and like a perfect man and all that, kind of is. And she kept trying to fit herself into that mold and find men that fit into that mold. And there's some disastrous, sometimes comedic results to what happens.
We're going to get into a little bit of spoiler talk because I know this is streaming free on Pluto, and it's also, who's got Pluto? But it's also streaming free on Amazon Prime. I think it has like commercials on it. But so if you haven't seen The Love Witch and you are interested in this type of film, go ahead and check it out and then come back and watch the rest of this review. But yeah, the character of Elaine Parks, I think that she is a person that has gone through some severe trauma, and trauma in every sense. She was in a abusive marriage, and it sounds like we get a little bit of the backstory with her marriage that didn't pan out. It wasn't so much physical abuse, but there's a lot of verbal and mental abuse, which is equally as horrific, right? The double standard of toxic masculinity and objectifying a woman, whether it be someone that you're just meeting or dating or even married to, it created this quote unquote monster. Like the tagline says, she loves men to death. This character of Elaine Parks, she is looking for an alternative to this thing that's just not working out. She wants to be loved. She wants love in her life, so she turns to this witch's coven. And even that kind of turns out to be ultra toxic as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like that felt like an abusive kind of situation there as well.
100%.
I think they delve into that as the movie goes on more and more.
And I like that. I like that there's that fact where it's just like, once you pull off the veneer of everything is bullshit.
Right.
And that's kind of bleak, but this is kind of a bleak message, which is a little disheartening, because this is what happens in real life. This is kind of, even though we're in a more quote unquote woke culture, toxic masculinity is still very prevalent.
Yeah, it's super prevalent.
So it's not something that you could easily dodge and get away from. And when you try to kind of buck the system and rage against the machine, so to speak, you're vilified. Let's talk about casting. Samantha Robinson. The only other credit that I really found, like that people have seen, she was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She was kind of a smaller role in that. The filmmaker, Anna Biller, was just like, people are just like, where did you find this person? Like, Samantha Robinson is just a universe onto herself. Like, everything she is just... everything orbits her, and if she isn't as impactful, this movie doesn't work. But she just nails this, and she found her just through normal casting means, and she's just like, I was as surprised as everyone else was. It was just this tape, but the way she spoke, her demeanor, the way that she commanded just attention on screen is how she landed this role. And I mean, Samantha Robinson is just phenomenal in this film.
Ms. Parks, are you a witch?
Yes, I am. Is there a law against that?
Just the touches, like, she'd always have the makeup perfect, and she would, like you said, try to like show this feminine side, but at the same time she's showing, like you said, this command of everything around her, or at least attempt to command it. But yeah, she's like, I can't think of anyone else better for this role. I think it's cool that most of the people in the movie are relatively unknown, so that's always cool.
Yeah, and it's so much more authentic, even though it's so like ultra realistic. Everything about this film is dreamlike. You put someone like Scarlett Johansson in this role. There's some similarities to the character that she plays in like Under the Skin. It's just like a manufactured genetically to be kind of like a female Venus flytrap, right? Like you entice people with your sexuality and whatnot. But this woman, Samantha Robinson, just your eyeballs are glued to the screen with every second she's on, with the way she talks, with the way she walks, and it's all purposely done. It's just like a masterclass from this young actress that's a relative unknown.
Yeah, and I actually think it's cool that she's unknown, because say you brought a Scarlett Johansson or someone like that in, those actors are characterized by the baggage of their previous films.
Sure.
And with this, you don't have any expectation set, right? It's like, oh, it's not going to be Scarlett Johansson being Black Widow, being a witch, or whatever like that. It's just like a totally new face, so you don't have that those preconceived notions about how she's gonna act in the film.
The filmmaker herself was very aware of this. This is paraphrasing, but she said something to the likes of, back in the 60s, they would find these young, good-looking women and put them in these exploitation films or other type of films, and teach them how to dance or teach them how to talk and just be on there, and they were like star makers. the movies were star makers, not you know, you would go out and get the whale to be in your film, and that was the draw. It was movies making, you know, dreams come true. It was very Hollywood, you know, dreamy-esque back in the day. And that's what I feel like this was. Like, this movie made this person, you know, put this person on the map. But
yeah,
it just goes to show you how much undiscovered talent is still out there, and you just give someone a chance, like Samantha Robinson, and look what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm waiting for that call from Marvel. I'm untapped potential all the way. Like, I should be in the MCU.
I mean, that goes without saying. We can't disclose the project here.
Right.
But thanks for, you know, leaking it out. That's really going to lend this podcast some cred.
Tom Holland style.
Some of the other, like, role players in this film, it may seem like some of the dialogue and some of the back and forth, let's be honest, it's like straight out of Samurai Cop.
Good morning, Sergeant Grip. Congratulations on your promotion.
Thanks, Connie. Is there any coffee?
Yeah, just made some. I made it just the way you like it.
Is there anything you don't do well?
Why don't you try me sometime and find out?
But you think that now, and especially me, like with jaded eyes, you know, I've seen it all, but it's just like, I wonder if it's almost harder to act like a bad actor, you know?
Yeah, instead of being good, like I'm sure it is, like trying to like feign that you're like you said, a bad actor when, you know, this movie called for it sometimes. You know, there was definitely some intentional bad acting, I feel like. And that, you know, in my opinion, provides for even stronger performances, because I think that takes a level of effort. And, you know, again, these big name stars might not be able to do that. They sweep in and they're used to like a certain way and a certain treatment and all this. And like, you know, it's harder to do that. I think that speaks volumes to the casting in this movie.
Yeah, it's all egos and reputation. That's all you are now, as far as like making movies goes. And Gian Keys, who plays, you know, Detective Griff Meadows, even though he's such like an alpha in this in this film, he must have like zero ego, because he's just going in there and laying down some lines that just make your face so hot, and you're just like so embarrassed for him. But it's all, like I said, it's all intentional, and that's what makes it so charming.
That was my girl.
Am I your girl?
For today, you are.
Some of his inner monologues are I just laughed. I was just like, it's such a toxic male way to think, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't think like that, but I'm just like, man. And what wows me is like, people still, you know, have thoughts like that towards women, and I thought that was like interesting to think about, you know.
And just like I already said, spoilers, but like the character of Wayne Peters, played by Jeffrey Vincent Paris, he goes on this whole tangent of just like, you know, he's like, oh, he's a teacher, he's intellectual or whatever, but no, he's just like super like scummy, toxic guy.
Yeah.
And then the point where she breaks him, that's when she's like, he's such a pussy.
What a pussy. What a baby. I thought I'd found a real man, but he's just like a little girl.
Like,
like those were her exact words. And I'm just like, I was like, wow.
I love it because it plays like she's equally as toxic as well, because you know, and that's what I think the filmmaker, and it's hard to, I want to say there's a level of this movie isn't made for us,
right,
you know, but I just saying there's a level of the filmmaker's message is trying to be like, this isn't right and this isn't right, so let's really kind of let's have the conversation in the middle. This toxic masculinity that's been happening for hundreds and thousands of years,
right?
Stop it. You know, like this ain't cool anymore. This is the final form of, if you guys can't self-regulate yourself, this is what's going to become the norm. The other big character in this is the score. I mean, it's so easy to give so much attention to the visuals of this film because it is so beautiful. But I mean, the filmmaker wrote most of the music too. But it's not just the music that's perfect, which is all original as well. But it's like the old school, perfectly placed stingers too. Like, she'll be taught. There's a scene where Detective Griff or whatever, he comes and he starts interrogating her. He kind of catches her off guard, and she's always like super annoyed when she doesn't have that like extra time to kind of set up and like feel comfortable. It's like kind of like jumping up on a spider or something. Like, oh, they're really cool, you know, calm and collected, and then you like poke at them and then you like kind of freak out. And it's kind of the same thing. Like he surprises her in her lair, and she's kind of defensive and kind of flippant at first, but then she like finds an in, and then she turns that into an opportunity to be like, oh, this guy is kind of super alpha. I kind of dig that. And then there's that like stinger and that like zoom in on our eyes, and that's when you know like shit's getting real.
That's all right, Sergeant. Meadows.
You can call me Griff.
This is like more of a celebration of, you know, female sexuality and in the era of when this was made, or, you know, the era of when these type of films were popular, using that femme fatale. Because seriously, when was the last time there was a female written femme fatale that was like this strong and this fleshed out and had this much like menace in substance to them?
Yeah, and I like that, like, almost all the movie is, like, directly from her perspective. It's not really from the perspective of any other characters. I mean, with Griff's inner monologues, it starts to break away from that a little bit. But, like, other than that, it's, like, it's solely on her. Like, she, you know, does all the, like, it's from her perspective. It's her story. And I think it, like, how it focuses on that, like, this female story. Right, and whether what she believes is right or wrong, I think it's for the viewer to decide.
Absolutely, it's just the comedy comes in the extremes, because like there's a point where that guy Wayne Peters, the you know, intellectual, but like turns out to be super douchey after like she sleeps with him and stuff, and he's just like, oh, women just don't listen to me. She's like, oh, poor baby, whatever, and like while rolling her eyes, but he literally dies because he can't handle his
own like emotions.
He can't handle being woke, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good. It turns out to be kind of comical sometimes, but in a very different way. You're laughing with the film. You're never laughing at the film. But there isn't a single joke in the film. Who would you recommend this film for, Zach?
I would recommend this film for, one, people who like to see, you know, throwback type movies, that enjoy, you know, the 60s style movies from back in the day. And then I'd also recommend it to, you know, women in general. I talked to a friend of mine who had seen it, and she was like, oh, I really like it, and it really said a lot. And,
nice.
You know, like you said, I don't think that it's really for us, so to speak. I think there's a lot that women are going to be like, yeah, that's me. I totally understand that in ways that, like, you or I couldn't.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even like recommend it to the audience it's intended for. Like, if this is trying to, you know, subtweet the dude bros, you know, it's good. The message is just, they're just gonna be like, that was dumb movie, you know, blah blah blah. They're not gonna get it. It's too subtle.
Yeah, it's too nuanced.
It's too nuanced, exactly, of a message to actually like pull the, oh, what, that chick didn't even, you know, like rip out his heart and take a bite, like, you know, all of the world building and the attention to detail would completely be lost on the person that this is adding.
Right.
But I would recommend this definitely to genre fans. Like, I think it is such a well-made film, and this is the poster child of, man, creativity is just what you can accomplish on any budget, really, if you just have the heart for it, if you believe in it. Like, just create out there. This is like an inspiring film just as like a creator of
a
someone.
Story.
Yeah, exactly. Like she wrote the script, she did the costume, she did all the lighting, like all of this stuff. Like shooting on film isn't cheap, but there was no way that she was going to shoot this digitally because it just would have made it fall apart. And
yeah, I agree. It looked too slick, I think.
Yeah.
And I think like the kind of graininess and roughness of it, like definitely are a big part of the charm of the movie.
Check this out. Like I said, it's streaming free a couple places, but I mean, if you want to buy it and support this film, I would definitely suggest doing that as well. I loved The Love Witch more than I thought I would, and
same.
I'm glad that I found it. So if you want to listen to this in podcast form, you could do so on iTunes and Spotify. We'll take vials of Witch's Brew, even like a suggestive dance. But that's that invitation is only for Zach. I only want to see his moves.
Right.
If you want to talk to us further about The Love Witch, you could do so on Twitter at The Cult of Films. You could also follow me at John the Host. Where can everyone find you, Zach?
You can find me on Twitter at Z4CK38, and you can find me on the Commander Social podcast on Wednesdays. Wherever you download your podcast, we're there. We're waiting to be listened to.
Until next time, just treat women better.